went through each jungle deep for the paradise that we to see. There's no trip for the weak. We're waltzing with the natives. Na 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 na.
I want to talk today about former Celtic captain and club legend, one of the best players ever to play for the club, Scott Brown. His comments over the last couple of days on social media regarding podcasters and certain parts of social media being vultures when it comes to the Celtic board. Now, I'll read you a couple of the quotes and then we can discuss them. So he basically said, "There are a lot of vultures out there on social media and podcasts who think they know how to run the club better. It's as if people think Celtic can just go out and spend £20 million on a player, but if you don't make the Champions League, the club starts going into the red." Now, here's the thing. I've watched a couple of podcasts over the last couple of days discussing this. Last night I was watching one and they were talking about how no one has ever said, I've never seen a quote either, of anyone ever saying that Celtic should go out and spend £20 million on a player. It's, every single Celtic fan knows that's unrealistic. Even if we sell a player for £25 million, we don't expect us to go out and spend £20 million to reinvest that on one player. We just don't. We're not idiots. We realise that's no the case, right? Now, it's a shame that Scott's taking that as people thinking that, because I just don't believe that's true. And like I say, I've got nothing but respect for Scott Brown. He's one of my favourite ever Celtic players. He is an absolute true legend of the club, and he's more than entitled to his opinion. You know what I mean? If anybody's earned the right, it's Scott Brown to talk about these kind of things. However, we've got a right to speak about it as well. Celtic fans, podcasters, everybody's got the right to an opinion. So this is just basically my opinion to Scott's opinion. I just don't agree with it. Like I say, not one single person has said go out and spend £20 million. All we're asking for is for the club to invest properly in the correct players. And if that means spending a couple £1 million more on players than we normally would, and then going to kind of reach out and attack the transfer window by just saying, you know what, here's the money, then we should be doing it. We should be doing it because we made the Champions League over the last few years. We made, obviously apart from this season, but we made money on players. The money's there. Then you've got the whole thing of everything that's come into the club through sponsorships and, you know, everything that's come in, basically. And Celtic make money all the time. So, you know, there's no way Celtic are skint. You know, we all know that. They came out with a statement a few months ago making excuses about how you can't spend this and that because of certain rules and stuff, which, again, no one is asking Celtic to break the bank here. We're asking for Celtic to just spend a wee bit more than they normally would because of the amount of success we've had over the years by getting in the Champions League, by winning trophies in Scotland consistently, by, you know, bringing money into the club. And there definitely is money there. So, like, for instance, if we'd have got rid of Kyogo in the summer there, right, and we'd have said, right, let's go out and properly invest in a striker, all Celtic fans are really wanting is that money reinvested, £8 million or 10, 11, 12. Nobody is asking for 20 million, a £20 million striker. People are just asking for a competent striker to come in. And in this day and age, for a competent striker to come in, you need at least £8 million, £10 million, £12 million. That kind of thing. That's where you get strikers who are worth any kind of money. Anything below that, and then they're not scoring goals, and they're not doing their job properly, and they can't play at the level and stuff. So, and obviously there is gems out there. Like Celtic spent £4.5 million on Kyogo, I'm sure it was, and he turned out to be a very good player and stuff. But sometimes you just need to go out and reinvest that money in for an absolute certainty. You know, like, let's go out and get, you know, Celtic spent £11 million on Arnie Engels, which we were all delighted about. You know, finally we're going to spend a wee bit of money here. Whether you think that's worked out or no, that's a different thing, but we're just asking for money to be reinvested in the club, instead of just them sitting on their hands and trying to just scrape by. You know what I mean? And this is the problem. The problem is what happened to Rangers. That, to me, that is what's happened here, right? Celtic, Dermot Desmond has come out publicly. I remember doing an interview on Celtic TV, and, a few years after what happened to Rangers and stuff, and he's like, we will never be in that position. We'll never be in that position. So he's used that as an excuse, in my opinion, not to spend properly. Not to spend a wee bit extra. If Celtic make a wee bit extra, then go and reinvest it. I think he's used the Rangers thing as an excuse not to do that. Right? Because Dermot Desmond's a billionaire. You don't become a billionaire by being frivolous and, just let's just spend. Dermot Desmond is a businessman before he's a Celtic fan. Do you know what I mean? It's just an absolute fact. Dermot Desmond, his main priority is his pocket. Right? And, fair enough. I appreciate the fact he's taking care of the club and will never be in the position of being liquidated or having no money and all that stuff. I really do appreciate that. But you're not telling me that if you go out and, you make a bit of money, like Matt O'Reilly was close to £30 million. Jota, we got £25 million. Going back to Kieran Tierney, was £25 million. That the kind of figures. You're not telling me that we need to keep all that money. That we need to just sit there on that. And the money that's been reinvested is nowhere near that budget. It's nowhere near the money that's been brought in. And then you've got the Champions League money, as I say. We're not asking for you to break the bank. We're not asking for you to put the club in trouble. We're not asking for you to be reckless. We know we're no stupid. We know there's money there. We know there's a couple of £1 million that you could have spent here and there on players that you've just not done it. Because you're trying to be too cautious. And you're just going, well, let's protect the club and the finances and stuff. Appreciated, but then again, we also want success on the park. And then we're currently in April here. We've got 5 games to go in the league, and Hearts and Rangers are ahead of us. I'm sorry, but that's nothing to do with, or great, we're brilliant in we're brilliant financially and stuff. Nobody really bothers about that. People want success on the park. You're not telling me that if we'd have spent even £5 to £10 million in the transfer windows, that we'd be in a terrible position financially, because we wouldn't. Like I say, we're no stupid. We know exactly what's happening here. Right? You're being too cautious. You're thinking about your own pockets. It's as simple as that. And you've used the whole Rangers thing as an excuse to do that. But Scott is obviously, like I say, the guy's a club legend, and who knows what's going to happen in the future with him. Whether he'll ever be employed by Celtic again, which is a strong possibility in my opinion. He could come back as an assistant manager, coach, whatever, and also he get paid by Celtic for a long time. So we know where Scott Brown's allegiances are lying here, which is absolutely fair enough. You know what I mean? But don't come out and kind of assume that the fans want £20 million signings, mate, because that's just not true. It's not true. I've never seen one single person say that. Let's go out, and spend £20 million. Nobody's ever said that. We just don't want under £1 million or £1.5 million on players for Japan that we don't know anything about, that don't work. In Amura, for instance. I mean, the actual transfers over the last season have been absolutely shocking. Adamu, failure. Svianchara, failure. Nvuku, failure. Balashawi, failure. These guys just, that's all that money. A couple of them are loanees and stuff. But it's not been good enough. In any way, it's not been good enough. Like I say, Inamura was in the summer as well. Shin Yamada didn't work. So many players just didn't work because Celtic have tried to be too clever. Let's get this player for here. That'll be amount of money. Let's just know. We don't need to spend that £5 million on a player, £6 million on a player, when we can just get him, for £1.5 million. And let's see how that works. That might work out. It doesn't work out. I don't honestly see how Scott Brown can look at this, over the last couple of transfer windows and think that's good enough for Celtic. And like I say, it's not as if we need a £20 million player. We just need a couple of players we've been linked to in the past, you know what I mean, that, you know, Celtic have just decided they're not going to spend the money on. You know? It's just happened over the last few years, and, you know, Celtic are paying the price now for it because they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to spend that wee bit extra to try and have success on the park, and now we're sitting third in the Scottish Premiership with 5 games to go. Now, this could turn out to be a very successful season for Celtic. You never know what could happen. You know, we're in the semi-final of a cup this weekend. We could go into the final and win that, and then we could claw us back in the league. But that doesn't take away the fact that the board have been shocking this season. And they've not helped matters whatsoever on or off the park. The way they've behaved off the park, I think, has just been as bad as how Celtic have been on the park. Their lack of communication, their decision making this season. To me, I don't think people are being vultures. I think people are just being honest. And, you know, you may, if you're unhappy with something, you just not meant to call it out. You just because you're a Celtic fan, you shouldn't be calling out these things. I get people make things go wrong. You know, people make decisions they shouldn't make. I get that within football, but it doesn't take away the fact that if you make a mistake, you should be called out for it. And I don't feel the Celtic board and I don't feel the Celtic hierarchy have taken anything that the Celtic fans have said seriously this season. And it's a big summer coming up, and we'll see if Celtic and the people who run the club are ready or prepared to change their ways in any way, because it's a whole new season. It's going to be a new manager. It's going to be a whole, you know, he's going to want to bring in his own players, his own staff, everything. We'll see if Celtic are going to back him. We'll see if he signs a 3-4 year contract. Will Celtic spend a wee bit of money in the summer and say, right, okay, last season wasn't good enough, particularly if we don't win the league and we don't win any trophies, or if we win just one trophy? Will Celtic back the manager next season? It's a big season ahead next season as well. You know what I mean? We've already had so much to speak about this season, and there's still so much to go. But we've got a huge season ahead of us next season, and the board have got an even bigger summer coming up than they did last year, and they let the fans down. So can they afford to let the fans down for a second season in a row? I'm not so sure. After all the mistakes that were made this season with Wilfred Nancy and the way the whole Brendan Rodgers thing turned out, and then the AGM and all this stuff, I don't think the Celtic board can afford to have more fallouts with the Celtic fans, to be honest. But I just wanted to talk about Bruni's comments and that. Still love the guy, you know, always will. And like I say, he's more entitled to his opinion. But I just don't agree with it. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys, and hit the subscribe button. Thanks.